this very difficult. Ooh, forgot something. Okay, I think that's better. For transparency's sake, I am using my iPhone 8 with the front-facing camera and the rear-facing camera. I am also editing on Splice. Usually when I do vlogging or any sort of video of myself, it's usually with a Canon T5i and with a wide-angle lens and a dead cat mic mini dead cat mic on the top. So, and it's usually Rode brand. Today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently though, because I want to talk about how to spruce up your videos and really think about accessibility. I'm going to move into a different location because this is ugly behind me. The first thing I'm going to talk about today is the snap. So the snap that I did over where I was, that's a really great way for a transition. So let's say you're going around, and this is a common issue that I see, especially when people don't have plans for their videos. It's more sporadic and they're kind of winging it. They'll realize that they're going to need to go out the door and they forget their jacket, and so instead of addressing it, they just suddenly have a jacket when they go out the door, and it becomes kind of a jarring continuity error. And continuity error is exactly what it sounds like. It's when all of a sudden they left the house and they didn't have a jacket, they got outside and they had a jacket. And unless you make it look like some sort of movie magic, it will be distracting. And so one way that you can do that is you can do the snap transition, and it's where, or another way is the jump transition, and it's where you line up. So let's say like over there, I made sure the wall was about as far away from my head. I made sure that Ruby was in the same position, and then when I made the snap, I kind of made sure that I always snapped at the same place. Now if you add a little bit of motion to your hand, it won't be as distracting when you actually snap, and it'll just look like it's moving anyway. If it kind of has a jump to it, that's okay. And that's where the jump is actually too, and that's where you just jump and you just cut when you're in the air, and then when you come down you're dressed. And so that's another way that you can do it. And so it's instead of just ignoring the fact that you forgot a jacket, you bring attention to it, and then you create a little bit of movie magic, and then it makes your video just stand out that much more. It shows that little bit of effort that you did to craftsmanship. It just shows how you know how to use the camera, you know how to edit, and it makes your video look more entertaining. It makes people want to watch it a little bit longer. Like, what else are they gonna do? Because that was kind of cool. So that is the snap or jump transition, and so I'd highly recommend trying to do that. And last little thing, so after you do it, you make sure that you're lined up in the same spot. You snap, you put the two videos together, and you want to make sure that you don't get both snaps. You don't want to have that. You want to make sure one snap is there and the other snap is gone. So really making sure they touch. Now in Premiere, you actually do a little bit of a J-cut, and that's where the sound overlaps the video by just a little bit in one, so they're overlaying. I'll add a little image of a J-cut. But in Splice, I think you just have to do your best to just touch it together. I don't think there's any way to kind of like get those sounds to kind of overlap. I'll have to see, and I'll write in below if it's possible right here. Second thing that we're going to talk about today is B-roll. Now B-roll is super important in any situation, especially in documentaries, and the purpose of B-roll is to kind of give you a sense of the place. So in my case, I could maybe do a wide shot of where I am. A lot of times establishing shots are kind of considered B-roll. But the big thing about B-roll is it kind of like sets the stage, it sets the tone. And it allows for you to kind of add some time to your video too, while also creating really cool shots. B-roll might be something like zooming in closely on some of the items in a room. The videos that I took before this, where I showed the coffee filling up, that's B-roll. It's not to do with what my video was, but it sets the stage. It's in the morning, I'm making coffee. that's B-roll. And so it's a really great way of kind of demonstrating. And in a way, your task video is going to be mostly B-roll because you're showing yourself doing something. Maybe you might show something beside it. It just kind of helps with you making your video have more texture, have more life. And so B-roll is the second one. Under the umbrella of B-roll, the next thing I wanted to kind of mention is a variety of B-roll. And what that might look like is like time lapse, using the effects of your camera, slow motion. I love me some slow motion. Getting some shots in different styles because it adds something else to it. Like when you're holding your camera all the time, you can see it wibble wobble. You can kind of tell when the camera's being held by hand, no matter how still you try and make it, unless you've got one of those super nice iPhones that have like the super crazy well editing, smoothing software in it. But when you're doing this, a lot of times you'll end up having a lot of like jiggles to it. So try your best to really let that camera, like using slow motion will make all your jiggles go away. And so if you're doing something, just kind of see what happens if you set it to slow motion. Another thing that you could do is a time lapse if you have a long project. I'm gonna splice in a little piece of a project here. I drew for like an hour, and so being able to just kind of condense that down into that small space just using my iPhone time-lapse really helped. Now if you're using a camera, a lot of times I actually use my iPhone specifically for those things. You have to have a pretty high quality camera to have both slow motion and time-lapse built into the camera, and so sometimes you just have to use your iPhone. However, if you don't have those things, you can go into editing and record in real time something and then just speed it up to the point where it just gets squished down. And so that's one way that you can create time lapse. Slow motion won't work with a regular pace. So right now I'm filming at probably, I think 32 frames per second, I think is what iPhone is. It's like 30 frames per second roughly. When you are filming at that pace, you can't slow that down very far without it starting to look like it starts to get really jerky. In order to actually use slow motion, you have to film in a higher frame rate. And so just kind of keep that in mind when you're going in and filming. This was a big mistake I made as a new filmmaker. I didn't understand that I couldn't just smooth out my film. I had to make sure that I was taking in a high enough frame rate so when I slowed it down, it was that buttery slow motion and not that just jerky slow motion. And I'll insert another one of those in there too so you can kind of see what that means. The other and last piece that I'm going to talk about that kind of helps, and this I demonstrated actually in my YouTube video, I Painted a Thing, and that's where you take pictures of progress. So this isn't video, you set up a camera and you know you have to do like a, let's say you were going to paint something and you didn't want to do a time lapse because you were going to be doing it over several days. Mark with tape where you're going to put your phone or your camera or your tripod so you know that you're always going to set it there in roughly the same space every time. And then what you want to do is you want to be able to take a picture of it at certain stage points as you go through. And so as it sort of becomes like clean, if you're cleaning your room and you just take a picture as it's slowly getting clean, or you're painting and all of a sudden it's starting to get like finished, you don't have to have it time lapsed, but having those pictures, those stills, shows the progress, and it almost looks like a video. Even though you're just taking camera photos, just a still image, because it's like clipping along, it has that time-lapse effect. But you don't have to commit to just sitting down and doing it all in one shot. You can actually like let the days go on for it. So if you got a really big idea, that's another one. So those are kind of my suggestions for today on how to spruce up your videos. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing them. I highly recommend trying at least 2 of these in the next video that you make, because you will be amazed at how much better your videos will get with just a few little tips and tricks like this. Have a great day, everybody.